Right now, we're in the final stretch before the release of Disney's new live action remake of Snow White. And right now, according to this article from Deadline, it's projected to make $100 million globally during its opening weekend. Scrolling further down, it breaks it apart by saying domestically, it's looking to land between $45 to $50 million with another $55 million abroad. Now, at a first glance, this might actually sound like good news for the movie. A $100 million opening isn't anything to scoff at until you take into consideration $55 million opening at best domestically is not really good compared to what they were saying about a month ago. This other article from Deadline dated February 7th projected it to make $63 to $70 million during its opening weekend domestically, with around $65 million expected for it. And when this article came out, I did a video at the time saying that that's actually pretty bad news for Disney, because for the amount of money that they spent on this movie, $65 million is basically nothing for an opening weekend. And now they're saying it's going to be even lower than what they were projecting at back a month ago. Now, just for comparison's sake, look at 2023's Little Mermaid when that came out. The opening weekend domestically for that one was around $95 million. Globally, the opening weekend for it was, I think, around $164 million. And in total, this brought in just under $570 million globally during its entire theatrical run. Now, keep in mind, the budget for this movie was around $250 million, and this was considered to be a box office flop for Disney. So this already had a higher opening weekend than what Snow White's projected. And not only that, the budget for this is lower than what we're expecting from Snow White. This article, again, coming back to it from Deadline, that says it had a reported budget of $270 million. So higher than what the Little Mermaid spent. But also, I know where this $270 million figure is coming from, and it's actually pretty inaccurate, because at the end of 2023, Forbes was reporting that they spent around $270 million on this movie. Now, keep in mind, this was from UK tax filing, so it's not like it's speculation. We know how much they spent on the movie. Since then, they've had to go through a number of reshoots. They also had to spend money on marketing. So in total, they're probably out closer to $450 million on this movie. And since Disney gets around half of the box office domestically and around 30 to 40% internationally, that means they probably need to make around 1.1, maybe even up to $1.2 billion at a minimum in the global box office in order to just break even on this movie. Now, keep in mind, going back to the numbers, they're tracking to do worse than a movie that brought in less than $570 million. So by all accounts, it looks like this movie is going to be a giant flop for Disney, possibly even one of their biggest box office failures of all time. And that's why it looks like friendly media outlets are kind of running to defense for Rachel Zegler and this movie. Legacy Media rushes to rebrand Rachel Zegler as she fawns over original Snow White voice actress. People runs Fluff piece ignoring Snow White controversy. And to me, that's the worst part about all of this, is that they're just trying to act like some of the past statements that she made never happened. Now, if they're going to have her do interviews with friendly media outlets, there's a ton that they can do to try to salvage her image. Maybe even ask her some of the questions or about some of the statements that she made in the past that rub people the wrong way. They could coordinate and come up with an answer that would actually be a bit more satisfying. But the most insulting part about all this is that they're just trying to act like none of it ever happened. Just ignore that and hope that people are dumb enough to forget that she ever said that she doesn't like the original Snow White movie. And that's why she's doing stuff like this. So on March 16th, people ran a glowing article focused on an Instagram post by Zegler, where she dressed in homage to Adriana Casolati, the voice of the original 1937 Snow White. Zegler captioned her post, "Just had to pay homage to the original Snow White, Miss Adriana Casolati, to whom I owe everything." So you see these photos that she posted on her own Instagram page, kind of a retro style, to, like she says, to pay homage to the original voice actress for Snow White. But this just comes across as a PR attempt to salvage her image, because just going by the statements that she made herself, She did not like the original Snow White movie. She even said that she didn't like it as a kid. It scared her. And then she was kind of dismissive about it when questioned about the original Snow White in regards to this newer version. What makes this Fluff piece particularly tone deaf is the omission of Zegler's inflammatory comments about the original Snow White. Let's not forget, this is the same actress who previously referred to the 1937 film as dated, criticized the prince's role as a problematic stalker, and dismissively and seemingly contemptuously claimed her version of Snow White wouldn't dream about true love like Castelletti, but would instead focus on leadership. In fact, in a 2022 interview with Variety, Zegler said, "The cartoon was made in 1937 and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird, the famous clip that I'm sure many of us have seen dozens of times by now. So we didn't do that this time." She also added, "She's not going to be saved by the prince. She's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be." These remarks alienated fans of the original film and sparked waves of criticism. Yet instead of addressing that, people frames her recent post as an earnest tribute to Castelletti, pretending as if the backlash over Zegler's previous dismissiveness never existed. And like I said, when you're having these interviews with friendly media outlets, you could always figure out like what would be the best response or what questions could they ask to address these previous remarks and how she can better basically explain them away. But instead, they're not even doing any of that. They're just trying to act as if it never happened and hoping that people are just ignoring all that. And that's pretty much why Disney has essentially been hiding her for the last couple of weeks, not really letting her speak off the cuff, because the few times where she has had an opportunity to speak off the cuff, or even like a previous video I made talking about how she had the mouth off on social media because someone was critical over her personally, it just goes to show that Disney is not happy with having this girl speak in front of camera. So the only time that they'll actually let her say anything is when they know the media outlets that are reporting on it will basically edit out anything that makes their movie look bad, which to me, that's kind of a lack of integrity or lack of journalistic integrity. But that's kind of what we've come to expect from a lot of media outlets in Hollywood that count on having their access to the studio and to the films in order to make a living. So they're basically just doing what's best for them, even if it means sacrificing any journalistic ethics that they have. While people briefly reference tension between Zegler and co-star Gal Gadot, it buries it under vague language about differing political views. There's no deep dive into real reasons audiences have been critical over Zegler, namely her decision to inject personal political stances, such as her Free Palestine comment, directly into the film's promotional cycle. Yeah, that was a stupid move by her. And then later on, when she started making other comments on social media, that's when Disney kind of stepped in and been like, okay, you can't do this anymore. And I think for the most part, they've done a good job keeping her under wraps, but still certain things just kind of slip through the cracks. This isn't the first time we've seen legacy media attempt to rewrite the narrative when a major studio project is in trouble. The same access-driven outlets who depend on close relationships with Disney are now doing their part to run interference rather than confront the genuine backlash stemming from Disney's creative choices and Zegler's public missteps. They're offering sanitized coverage designed to distract audiences. It's not a coincidence that the People piece dropped days before the film's release, conveniently timed to soften Zegler's image right as Disney braces for potential box office underperformance. Combine that with the last-minute review embargo scaled back a U.S. premiere and limited press appearances, and it's clear that this is part of a larger coordinated effort. Yeah, and I think you would have to be crazy at this point to not think that there isn't coordination going on at this stage, but it's just a matter of whether it'll be effective. And in all honesty, when you look at the box office projections for this opening weekend, I don't think it's going to do a whole lot for this movie. I think it's going to go down in history as one of Disney's biggest box office failures of all time. I don't currently have the list of what are the worst, but I mean, it's looking like this is probably going to lose hundreds of millions of dollars for them that they'll eventually admit to. But maybe the movie is going to come out this week and it turns out the movie is just fantastic. In fact, I think it would be kind of hilarious if that was the case. And this movie goes on to make billions of dollars for them. And because that would probably be the most surprising thing about this, because I've been following the production of this movie for the last couple of years, and by all accounts, it looks like this is going to be a disaster. So having something unexpected like that happening, and if I actually turned out to enjoy the movie, then I will be pleasantly surprised. But I'm really not expecting that when it comes to this movie, because there's been so much damage, not only to this movie, particularly to Rachel Zegler's image, but just the Disney brand as a whole. I'm thinking there's a lot of people, even if this movie is actually a good movie, they will just still refuse to watch it just out of principle. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.